Number 7, Acrocanthosaurus, a kind of carcharodontosaur, faces off against Zhuchengtyrannus, a full-on tyrannosaurid. Zhucheng is a foot and a half longer, and even though Acrocanthosaurus somehow weighs more than Zhuchengtyrannus looks fierce. When the battle begins, Zhucheng does what all tyrannosaurs do. He just tries to walk down Acrocanthosaurus, relying on that one bite, one kick knockout power he has. Acrocanthosaurus seems to be taking the strategy of all carcharodontosaurids, which is the take a bite and then run. And the teeth of carcharodontosaurs are designed to rip holes in flesh and generate lots of blood loss. As they approach one another, they begin circling. Acrocanthosaurus, with some speed, darts in and takes a pretty solid bite out of Zhuchengtyrannus' leg. Zuk misses on his counter-strike. Acrocanthosaurus paces around and takes another swipe, and as his head goes in low to try to really cripple that Zhuchengtyrannus leg, Zhuchengtyrannus comes across the top, bites the back of Acrocanthosaurus' skull, and with an unbelievably powerful bite, actually removes the entire back half of Acrocanthosaurus' head. This fight is over with a one-shot walk-off victory by Zhuchengtyrannus. Your number 10 seed with an upset moves on. Acrocanthosaurus itokensis versus Zhuchengtyrannus. I wasn't familiar with Zhuchengtyrannus at all. And it turns out he's known from exactly two elements: a huge maxilla chunk and a big piece of dentary. And the maxilla and the dentary are both larger than Tarbosaurus and slightly smaller than Tyrannosaurus. So when you look at the weights I used for Acrocanthosaurus versus Zhuchengtyrannus, I had Acro coming in at a ton and a half heavier, even though Zhucheng is a foot and a half longer. So what I realized is Acro, based on my own thoughts now, and I'm not the theropod researcher, and we only have two bones from the skull, but if he follows a normal Tyrannosaurid body plan, I think Zhucheng would have been heavier than what I've got him in at the tournament. I think Acro probably would have been a little lighter. However, with that tall spine down the back, I envisioned that as a lot of muscle, so I really had him bulked up on the weight-wise, but no one knows what that spine's for. Acrocanthosaurus is named for high-spine lizard, and his dorsal vertebrae are tall, much taller than equivalent theropods. They're not Spinosaurus 6 feet tall, but they're well over a foot tall. They're much longer than anything along those lines. So Acro, and it runs pretty far back past the hip. So this got this long muscular sail is the argument. Some people think it was fairly slender and was used for communication. Others thought that it was loaded with muscles and gave it additional power. It's the standard sail. And I don't know what any of these animals are doing with their sails.
Oh, yeah. Well, certainly when you see those big, long neural spines, a lot of the times, certainly in modern animals that I've worked on, there's a big chunk of muscle there. I think you could probably make a good argument for that. Without examining the material myself, I'd hate to weigh in super heavy on one end or the other. But yeah, I think you could make an argument for a weight disparity between the two animals. But that big maxilla and big dentary on Zhucheng, that's tough to argue with too.
And it's so funny to non-paleontologists because they're looking at the artwork and they see a whole drawn animal. But Zhucheng's a great example. If you find the right two bones and you can confidently state that they belong to a tyrannosaur, and we use principles of homology, and we know that, well, these bones are this big on this animal and the rest of it looks like this, and this is a very close cousin, we project. And you work at the Rocky Mountain Dinosaur Resource Center, so you have a lot of people come through. Do you get a lot of questions about casts of complete versus partial?
Yeah, we probably the most common question we get is, are these casts or are these original bones? And in our case, it really depends on which skeleton you're talking about at the time. But when we fill out a whole skeleton, whether it's cast or original bone, because you never get the whole skeleton, or so close to never that will make no difference, that we do kind of have to fill in some gaps here and there. And like you were saying, some elements are a little bit more instructive and informative than others. If I go out and I find a rib, I can tell sometimes, oh, this is a big theropod rib, but it's a rib. But if you start finding bones out of the skull, that'll tell you a whole lot more about what you're dealing with, which is why I think even though you've only got two elements on the Zhucheng, you've got a little bit more to work with than you would if you just found 2 vertebrae or something.
And Acrocanthosaurus, well-deserved, very powerful carcharodontosaur, very old carcharodontosaur, big, heavy, massive. But in this battle, I had the two of them lock up, and Zhucheng's T-Rex crazy battle strength, having it severing Acrocanthosaurus and just destroying it. Zhucheng was a house of fire, and when I envisioned this battle was the carcharodontosaur is only going to be the Tyrannosaur if he's able to get some bites and cause blood, almost like the Allosaurus fight from earlier. Blood and run. Tyrannosaur, he just, as soon as he gets you, it's over. It's like watching a heavyweight fight. The fight can end at any moment when a Tyrannosaurid is in the ring because of the bite powers of just 10,000 plus Newton-pound force or forces, the ability to puncture through bone.
I absolutely think that those bite strengths are if anything, conservative at times. You know, there's a big piece of evidence there that you look at a lot of times is the root on those teeth. And it's huge. It's built so far up into the jaw, and that's to be able to withstand a huge amount of torque and a huge amount of lateral force when they bite into something. That tooth has to have a lot of support to keep it from just breaking loose or breaking off there. You know that they were definitely putting their teeth and their jaws through a lot of pressure. So whenever I see a Tyrannosaur or a Tyrannosaurid, my first thought is bite force. That's really the thing that they're known for.
Ways Zhuchengtyrannus proves the Tyrannosaur power and advances onwards against Acrocanthosaurus.